All right. Hey, everyone. This is episode 127 of the Hail Mary podcast. We have a special guest with us today. It's Jake Gibson from the Pods Up Podcast, which is part of Lemon City Live. And he's going to join us to preview this first responder bowl matchup versus FIU. Hey, Jake, great to have you on. And thank you for reaching out to us to help us with this preview.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Me and the rest of the guys at the Paws Up Podcast, we're just as stoked as anybody that we're finally getting to go to a bowl game and for the first time since 2019. It's been a hot minute for us here at FIU down here in South Florida, and I had a feeling we'd end up taking on a former Conference USA member, regardless of what bowl game it was going to be, and here we are taking on you all in the Roadrunners and UTSA. So. I'm super stoked for it. I wish I could say I was going in person, but that December 26th date is pretty tough. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah.
obviously we'll still be tuning in. All of South Florida will be, and we just want to see FIU, reach new heights like Willie Simmons promised us. So far, so good with that.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up because we caught your initial reaction to that kind of bowl announcement with
Yeah,
Kevin Barral, and I just wanted to say his name because it was so fun
yeah,
when you said it. Um, but you weren't too excited about that location, right? You kind of
yeah.
already we kind of started kind of talking about that, and I totally understand because here's the like you said the first bowl game since 2019,
Hmm.
and you would have imagined it would have been a little bit closer so that that fan base could keep that momentum going from this year. So
Yeah.
what else can you tell us about just that, how the fan base is feeling?
We were certainly there were a few. There's quite a few bowl games that Conference USA teams can sort of get assigned, and one of them, which we were really hoping for, is the Boca Raton Bowl, which is played at our arch rival FAU at their stadium, and it's only like about 40 to 50 minutes away from FIU's campus. It is super close. FIU has a massive alumni base, and so it would have been so easy for them, especially in state, to go to Boca. I mean, some other spots like the Cure Bowl in Orlando would have been nice. Even the New Orleans Bowl,
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach. I don't hate the fact that it's in Dallas. I'm not saying I don't dislike the city or whatnot, but it's going to be cold. Which yes, we like 60 degrees for us it's like a blizzard to you all. It's rough, and I'm sure it's going to be a
It
lot
is.
colder there, especially because it's not even like AT&T Stadium, which has a roof. It's SMU Stadium,
Right.
which is definitely going to be interesting. And obviously, yeah, like I said, to have a large FIU fan base there, if it was a bowl game, and the stiff would have been nice. Now I feel like it's going to be the opposite. I'd imagine quite a few UTSA fans are going to make the drive north to Dallas to go to that, which I absolutely commend. I would too if it were in my shoes. But regardless, I mean, we can't complain too much because we're just happy to be in a bowl game. Like I said, the first
Yeah.
time since 2019 when we lost to Arkansas State in the Camellia Bowl. Our last win in a bowl game was the year prior against Toledo in the Bahamas Bowl. So it's been quite a long time since FIU has seen the postseason. So at the end of the day, we are just happy to be in a bowl game among the best of the best in FBS.
Yeah, I totally understand because our first bowl was 2016, right? And we were just
Mhm.
happy that we actually made a bowl and we're like, all right, cool. It's in New Mexico. So still was sort of a drive, but at least it
Yeah.
was regional enough, I guess, was the
Mhm.
best way to put it. But yeah, so hopefully we get to see a lot of FIU fans out there because it would be really cool just to be able to kind of take in the bowl experience with them. It is a good way to kind of bridge everybody together. But
Yeah.
last time UTSA played FIU in 2022, it was the Mike McIntyre era.
Yeah.
So, how would you summarize, I guess, FIU's first season under Willie Simmons?
It is an amazing change of pace. The Mac the Mike McIntyre era was unfortunately not great as it turned out with all
Yeah.
those 4-8 seasons back to back to back. FIU really was making no progress records wise, and then here comes Willie Simmons, a guy who has a very nice head coaching pedigree in the FCS level with Florida
Yeah.
A&M, Prairie View A&M. He knows how to win. He hasn't had a losing season yet as a head coach of a Division One football team, and that won't change regardless of if FIU wins or loses this bowl game, already having 7 wins. Um, he's a Florida guy from Tallahassee, nearby Tallahassee, and he knows how to recruit the state of Florida well. Which I mean, I know this is going to be controversial for you all to hear, maybe, but I think the best high school football talent in the United States comes from the Sunshine State, and I know Texas is really good too. I'm not
That's all
denying
right.
that, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Florida is I think it's another whole wave of talent that comes in, and he's prioritized already in both his first season and even now with the latest signing class. Getting the best talent you can here in the Sunshine State and just developing a winning culture as the season has gone by. And truth be told, Willie didn't need to do a whole lot to impress the FIU fans. He just need to do a few things. One, get us to a bowl game. Easier
Yeah.
said than done, but he did that, no problem. And number two, beat your rival, Florida Atlantic, which is something we haven't done in a very, 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 very long time. FIU did that as well.
Yeah.
So, and I guess number three would be have a marquee win. FIU has had a few marquee wins this season. They defeated the number one team in Conference USA twice when they took down Western Kentucky and then Jacksonville State. So Willie did so good that we were beyond scared when USF was looking for a new head coach,
Yeah.
thinking they might want to come down here to grab Willie. Thankfully, that didn't happen. So, I'm really hopeful we can have Willie Simmons for years and years and years to come. Obviously, if you're a group of five, group of six football team, it's tough to retain coaches for quite a bit of time these days with how power conferences can sort of grab them however they feel. But I really love Willie Simmons and the work he's already done in 1 year. It's eclipsed what Mike McIntyre was able to do his entire tenure here, which was frustrating because it was a pretty long tenure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited for the future with Willie Simmons.
Well, tell us a little bit about the offense. It seems like they really took a big step forward this year. What should we expect from that unit under Willie Simmons?
It's very interesting. During the Mike McIntyre era, and even before that, this was a air raid, pass heavy offense that would try to destroy secondaries. This season under Willie and a pretty brand new coaching staff around him on both sides of the ball, they've turned towards the run game, and so far so good with what they've been able to see from playmakers such as running back Keyshawn Owens, who I believe is in the top 10 in rushing yards in all of D1 FBS. He's been that successful for the FIU Panthers this season, and part of that is with the offensive line and how they're just able to create gaps for Keyshawn, but he really is a special talent that we have here. Passing wise, it's been interesting because FIU is kind of in a predicament for this bowl game on who's actually going to get the start. It could be Keywan Jenkins, who started the season for FIU, but unfortunately ran into a couple of injuries, especially some to his ribs that forced him to sit out a few games. And then you bring in Joe Pazanski, who in the games he started has looked absolutely electric. If you were to ask me personally, because they're both kind of banged up entering this game, but
Yeah.
one's going to
Yeah.
have to start. If it were up to me, I would say put in Joe Pazanski. I feel like he had the hotter hand. I say that, and Keywan looked really great in the regular season finale against Sam Houston State, but it was
Right.
against Sam Houston State, one of the worst teams in all of FBS. But no, I feel like it's almost a good problem to have because I feel like both of these quarterbacks can go into this bowl game and potentially have a great game passing wise, especially because of how they're going to be backed up by FIU's relentless rushing game in a conference that really has prioritized having good run games with Jacksonville State and the season that Cam Cook had over there for the Gamecocks. Receiving now, as far as receivers go, it was kind of unfortunate entering the season because your two best receivers from last season, Eric Rivers, Dean Patterson, both went to Georgia Tech, as it would turn out, in the transfer portal. So you kind of had to start anew, and I think FIU kind of killed it as far as transfers, bringing in new talent. You have Alex Perry, who leads the receiver position in both yards and touchdowns, and beyond that, Perry's going to be the wide receiver one. After that, it becomes a receiver by committee. There really is no wide receiver two or three. It's whoever wants to have a big game, have at it. And pretty much anyone is available to do that in this offense. So as far as the big three names to watch out for, it's going to be whoever the hell is going to be starting at quarterback. I feel confident it probably will be Pazanski. He dealt with he's dealing with like a toe injury that didn't allow him to play in the season finale against Sam Houston. Like I said, Jenkins, who has been the face of the program for the last few years now, entered the transfer portal before the season began. Stayed with the Panthers for this season. Didn't have the greatest start to this season. Jenkins did. I mean, he was the preseason offensive player of the year. Didn't unfortunately pan out that way for him. I think just the offense itself, like I said, changed quite a bit,
Yeah.
being a bit more dominant on the run this season. But I have trust in both of them. I would just go a little bit with Pizanski because I feel like he kind of fits the offensive system a little bit better with what Willie and our OC Nick Coleman are trying to portray here at FIU.
Gonna be interesting though. You said it's run heavy because UTSA has prided themselves on defense of trying to stop that run. So
Yes.
it'd be interesting to see that battle in the trenches and see,
Hmm.
obviously what happens there. I like what you were talking about the quarterbacks. We had plenty of questions on the quarterbacks as to who
Yes.
you thought was going to start. And so when we were both talking about, which quarterback, we were like leaning towards Pizanski because I think that's
Mhm.
what Jake's going to say. He did have a pretty hot hand, and it seemed like in his games that he was playing,
Yeah.
FIU was winning those games. So, you did talk about Alex Perry. I mean, what kind of receiver is he? Because, obviously you see all types of, a slot guy, you see, a guy on
Mhm.
the outside. What kind of receiver should we expect when we watch him out there?
He can give those secondaries hell. Like he is not only is he hard to bring down, he's very shifty with how he moves. He's just a hard guy to sort of follow, especially when he gets going. When FIU does want to go deep with deep ball
Yeah,
passes, they'll go to Perry, and he is speedy and he is hard to bring down. So he's the right guy for the job. He has the most reliable hands in the receiving room. He hardly drops passes as well. Like I said, it's a receiver by committee scenario for FIU this season. We
gotcha.
didn't really know who the wide receiver one would be entering the season, and it took a few games for Alex Perry to sort of shine. But he has, and since that point, he um, he hasn't stopped in the slightest, and it's cool because a lot of the guys we brought in through the transfer portal are Florida guys, which obviously wanted to come back to the 305 anyway possible. Alex Perry was one of those guys. Spent
Yeah.
a few seasons in Hawaii. Now he's back where he used to play high school ball. So it's cool that they did that. And I think so far on both offense and defense, it's paid off that way. So you're definitely going to have to be keeping an eye out for Alex Perry as the game goes on.
Yeah, and it should be interesting because our secondary's been a little beat up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Much like you were talking about, hey, it's been a receiver by committee. We've had this like kind of secondary by committee. We lost a cornerback just kind of going into the season
Yeah.
after that. It's just like you can't pick anybody else up, right? So it becomes quite difficult. So let's get back though to Keyshawn Owens because he was the CUSA Offensive Player of the Year. What are some of the things that make him so effective?
He is he became the first FIU Panther to have over 1,000 receiving yards since like 20, was it 2016, something like that. It,
Wow.
it kind of just goes to show you how this FIU offense, I'm not going to say abandoned the running game for all these years, but they definitely put it like to the side. But again,
Gotcha.
this offense this season is different where they highlight it more than anything else, and Keyshawn was the guy to do it. He was one of the longest tenured players at FIU who didn't, leave before this season even kicked off. And he was always serviceable in these last few seasons, but this was definitely his breakout year.
Okay.
Basically, it was an opportunity for Keyshawn Owens this season to have the majority of the snaps because of how we've had some veteran running backs ahead of him for years and years and years now. Now it was his show, and he has absolutely made the most of it. I mean, it's kind of like Alex Perry. He's fast. He's very fast, but again, he's a hard man to break down when he has momentum. So if he can get past the trenches, it's really tough for the secondary to take him down if they have to. So. And it's not just Keyshawn Owens putting in the numbers on the ground. Anthony Carey has
Okay.
been a reliable running back number two. Devontae Lyons was kind of a disappointment this season, but I thought it would be a three-headed monster in the backfield with Owens, Carey, and Lyons. Lyons unfortunately didn't really pan out that way, but you still have a really deadly 1-2 punch in Owens and Anthony Carey.
Yeah, and it seemed like when you had Keon Jenkins as quarterback too, he
Yep.
was picking up a significant amount of carries. He seems like he's kind of that dual threat quarterback who's, probably going to take off more often than not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Jenkins was that guy. It's funny. I'm not saying Pizanski is not a runner when he has to. They're very different runners. I think Jenkins is significantly faster,
Mhm.
and he's
Yeah.
kind of harder to sort of predict his movement when he gets going. Pizanski can run. We've seen him run quite a bit away from the pocket and get plenty of first downs when he's had to. I think Pizanski, I would say, is a smarter runner, and I think he's a bit more physical. I'm looking
Okay.
back to this touchdown he scored against, I believe it was Liberty, and how he just kind of barreled through a few defenders to get to the end zone. It was absolute cinema. And yeah, Pizanski, they're both solid when they have to run the ball. I think the coaches would probably prefer Pizanski if he is in to stay in the pocket and maybe not run, especially because he is dealing with of a toe injury of sorts. But
Okay.
if they have to leave the pocket, they will. Thankfully, I think FIU, for the most part this season, has had a very reliable offensive line. So the quarterbacks haven't had to do a whole lot of running because the pocket's been collapsing. The running they've done is because they just saw an open hole and decided to go for it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that offensive line because that was going to
Hmm.
be where I wanted to go to next. I mean, it looks like the strength maybe in the interior of the line.
Hmm.
Um, but again, if you're just kind of looking at, say, maybe PFF grades or something like that, it's going to look like the tackles haven't done their job. But you said,
Yeah.
they've been pretty solid. So can you tell us a little bit more about the line?
Keep an eye out for Julius Pierce, our center. He is a
Okay.
bona fide he's a fan favorite. Here he might be my favorite player on the team with how much of a character he is. He started at FIU, transferred to Middle Tennessee, then this season came back to the Panthers. He actually had some troubles as the season started with actually snapping the ball to Jenkins. It felt like there was a lack of chemistry there. As the
Okay.
season has gone on, that's pretty much fixed itself. And he's been just an absolute dominant player in the trenches, like you said. This is a team overall that does not that does not allow sacks that often, regardless of if it's Jenkins or Pizanski, who's the passer. They don't get sacked that often. It's a very tough unit to break through, and like I said, they've worked in harmony with our running game as well. So yeah, keep an eye out for Julius Pierce. He's a
Okay.
fun guy. He's a very emotional player. That was pretty evident when we took down our arch rivals in Florida Atlantic in the Shula Bowl, as we call it, that rivalry here between FIU and FAU. All the players were, but definitely for a lot of the veteran players who it's just been loss after loss after loss against the Owls. It definitely meant more to them, and Pierce was no exception to that.
That kind of stings for us, I think, because our rivals have beaten us 2 years in a row. So
Mm,
hopefully we can get back on track on Texas State. But
yeah,
yeah, it's one of those things where you always want to beat your rivals. And we keep saying that over and over, and our coach sometimes I
yeah,
think maybe forgets it because one of his mentees is there at Texas State. But
right.
try to get him back on track here. So it looks like the offense pretty solid. Obviously, our defense does struggle at times with running quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, especially if they're
Yeah.
situational, like you said. Because if that's the case, then we'll have to keep an eye on these quarterbacks. Let's get over to the defense though, because I think there's some really cool stuff going on here. You had Javon
Mhm.
DeWitt is really the only person on staff the last time UTSA played FIU, and
Right.
there's been a lot of we've seen a lot of from the defensive where they're mixing up those pre-snap coverages, which to me is already problematic. Um,
Hmm.
you know, we've got a first time or an interim offensive coordinator going in. So how does that affect everything as we start taking on this FIU defense? So what are some of the other things that we can expect from FIU to potentially show us?
It's the biggest bend but don't break defense I've seen from FIU in recent years.
Okay.
If you look at just the statistics, they do tend to give up quite a bit of rushing yards and passing yards, but this is a defense that is pretty exceptional at holding teams to 3 points when they get to the red zone. They did that quite a few times when they took on Western Kentucky in Bowling Green earlier this season. They're also not too shabby with snagging interceptions. That's secondary for FIU. Really
Yeah.
is no joke with
Yeah.
what they've been able to do this season, led by our secondaries coach Anthony Gator, who is another long tenured Panther here, was a former player for FIU as well. Now, there is a slight problem that I'm kind of worrying about with the defense, and it's the fact that quite a few guys have entered the transfer portal, unfortunately, with safety Josiah McGrew being one of them. And if I'm not mistaken, Victor Evans III, one of our corners, has also entered the portal. I feel like FIU hasn't been hit too badly by players entering the transfer portal overall before this game, but the defense, I want to say three total players so far. For the defense are entering the portal. So I think it's definitely an area of concern when everyone was actively playing. I thought FIU's defense this season was pretty good, and especially against some of the toughest opponents in Conference USA. When Jacksonville State came here, they had one of the best offenses, not just in Conference USA, but maybe even all of Group of Five football. And they only limited them to just 21 points in the entire game, including only 7 points in the second half. So when this defense goes up against tough opponents, usually they can sort of limit the damage. The times they didn't was when, unfortunately, they kind of got shelled by UConn earlier in
Yeah.
this season, though UConn has, I think, statistically one of the best offenses in all of college football, the way
Yeah.
they were working it. Kennesaw State obviously was not a great game for them. The Owls went on to win Conference USA entirely. I mean, but this defense has had some positive moments as well. I think I hearken back to the second game of the season against Penn State when they only allowed 10 points at halftime
Right.
to the Nittany Lions in
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah,
Valley, which I thought was I thought it was a massive positive for the look of this team. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, about the guys in the transfer portal. I think I saw Mr. Clark is also in the
yes.
transfer portal too. So that's, one more hit to that secondary. What's the philosophy from your coach about whether those guys will play or not? I mean, should we anticipate seeing them even though they say they're going in the portal, or is this going to be a scenario where he's not going to let them play?
Well, I sure hope so. To be honest, I don't really know because this is uncharted territory for us to see how this all works. This is a brand new coaching staff and a program that hasn't gone bowling in quite a few years. So to be honest, I can't really answer that. We're just gonna have to find out the hard way. I would assume if the coaches would let them play if they wanted to. And again, I'm just assuming that just off of the camaraderie the coaching staff and the players sort of created this season was one of the best that I've seen a coaching staff do here at FIU in a long time. Now, thankfully, I think FIU has depth in the secondary, which is where they were hit the most through the transfer portal. I mean,
Okay.
this secondary has names on names with guys like Brian Blades, Ashton Levels, Victor Evans III, like I said, G7, a whole bunch of guys that can fill in for those key spots that may or may not be empty once we get to the 26th of December. So, it's a good question. That unfortunately, I don't think anyone really knows because we haven't been here before. We really don't know how they handle that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you talked a lot about the secondary.
Yeah.
You want to talk to us a little bit more about that front seven? Are there any impact guys there that we may
Mhm.
not know about yet, and probably are going to get to know a lot about on December 26th?
Keegan Davis is definitely a name to watch
Okay.
out for. I think he was may have been one of the biggest snubs in the all conference list. He was in the second team. I felt like he did more than enough this season to justify getting into the first team. But regardless, he is a very
Okay.
good defensive lineman. Again, one of the more senior players on the team who like many other long tenured players on the Panthers have been dying to close out their college careers getting to a bowl game, and he's
Yeah.
absolutely made the most of that. Yes, I'd say Keegan's definitely one of those guys in the trenches that you will definitely have to be looking out for. Other big playmakers like Kenton Simmons and Quaylen Hill can also make impacts on the games when they have to. But I would say as far as defensive lineman goes, Keegan Davis is going to be your guy to watch.
Is he moved around a lot, or does he mostly stay like on one side and just
Yeah, I think it depends on the opponent really, and
okay?
the offenses that they take on, whether they get guys like Keegan to move around or not. I wouldn't expect something a whole lot different against UTSA than what we've seen lately against teams
Okay.
like Jacksonville State and Liberty, for example. Their defensive schemes probably won't be too different when taking on a team like UTSA. I mean, obviously the Roadrunners are a team that were good enough to defeat a team that's currently in the CFP in two lanes. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a question of what type of UTSA team are we going to get this season. Hopefully, we don't have to pay the Alamo Dome tax, and like a lot of other really good teams in the American have had to do this season. But yeah, that we'll definitely have to wait and see for that one as well.
Yeah, listen, this team has been nothing but the Jekyll of Hyde of the American Conference. We've struggled on the road, we've played well at
Hmm.
home, but
Yeah,
fortunately, we've been okay on neutral sites recently with this quarterback. So hopefully that
yeah,
will pan out. But you just never know what's going to happen.
absolutely.
Well, tell us a little bit more about the your kickers. Any things we should watch out for? Do they have anybody have like a big leg that we should know that expect maybe some 50 yarders or 55 yarders from?
Yeah, Noah Grant has been our primary kicker for the latter half of the season. We started off with Robert Saremcha. We kind of moved away from him and went to Noah Grant, who that was basically a war in the kicking battle leading up to the season and even during practices per week. And it's been Noah Grant for the majority of the season. I think he started off pretty unpredictable. He definitely had a rough few games as the starter for FIU, but I think these last few games he certainly got it together. He was able to hit a
Yeah.
51 yarder, which was it is his career long. I would definitely they probably won't bust out Noah Grant unless if they're stuck around the 30, 35 to 40, or unless it's like, fourth and long. If it's fourth and short, they probably are going to go for it instead. Not that they don't trust Noah Grant by any means, but this is an aggressive offense, and Willie Simmons has a lot of trust in the offense to prioritize trying to convert fourth and shorts rather than kicking the field goals. But if they have to, Noah Grant has been serviceable, and I think he's gotten hotter as the season has gone on, quite like a lot of um, other players on this team.
Nice. Tell us a little bit more about your kick returner. I think it's Saquon Jean-Pierre.
Yeah,
Um, we've had some problems against, some explosive, returners at times. So
Mhm.
just wondering, what can you tell us about him?
I think that the returning game for FIU has unfortunately been pretty disappointing
Okay.
this season. Saquon Jean-Pierre was the preseason Conference USA Special Teams Player of the Year, and unfortunately, he just hasn't lived up to those expectations as well. Kind of like Keywan Jenkins, but yeah, I'd say overall, returning wise, there hasn't really been that much excitement here at FIU this season, maybe compared to some seasons past when Saquon Jean-Pierre really he did have a great season last year, which unfortunately has not been able to replicate. A part of that could be that some CUSA teams have sort of wisened up and have elected not to kick to guys like Saquon that often,
Yeah.
which might flood the stats a little bit, but. It hasn't really been that incredible receiving wise for kicking and punting for FIU this season.
So, kind of looking at this matchup, what do you think is the big X factor that will be
Hmm.
the outcome in the game for FIU?
It's how well they're able to adjust in the second half. Crazy enough, since the Middle Tennessee game back on November the 8th, this team has really shined when it comes to making adjustments on both sides of the ball coming out of halftime. The game was relatively close between
Hmm.
Middle Tennessee, and then coming out of halftime, FIU absolutely dominated and dropped 56 points on them. Same thing goes for Liberty and Jacksonville State. They were both trailing at halftime. And then on defense, they absolutely clobbered both Liberty and Jacksonville State in the second half. And on offense, they did just enough, more than enough, really, to defeat both of those teams. And Sam Houston was the rare time they didn't have to make adjustments in the second half because it was a laugher at halftime
Yeah.
against the Bearcats. But um, it's just a matter of and aside from that, just momentum wise, can FIU keep up what they've been able to doing in the month of November? Willie Simmons talked about it. If there's one month you need to dominate, it's November, and FIU was undefeated in the month of November to the point where not only did they get bowl eligibility, but they even got that elusive seventh win to secure the winning season, which I'm sure for Willie, he's more than excited about to continue that winning streak of winning seasons as a head coach in Division I football. So. And aside from that, it's sort of the usual suspects. Can they stay hot? Can they break through? Being Keyshawn Owens. If he's hot, then there's not a whole lot the rest of the offense needs to do because Owens has had games where, yeah, he's had to put the team on his back per se at times, and fine by the rest of the offense if that's the case. And if it's not, well, then you have the really big if of who's starting at quarterback because the whole outlook of the offense can change because of that.
Gotcha. So, are there any unique traditions at FIU? Like, we've got, we got the triangle of toughness at the beginning of the fourth quarter. We
Hmm.
put up the triangle. Last year we played Coastal Carolina in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, right? And they had the
Right.
turnover cloak. So, just wondering if we're gonna see any of that whipped out by FIU at any point, or if you guys have anything.
They have a turnover belt, but
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's super incredible to be honest. I think the traditions for FIU just comes from the vibes of South Florida in general. I mean, we play in a place called Pitbull Stadium. You know,
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
it's pretty fascinating that this connection that this football team and the university in general has to the city of Miami. I'd say it certainly represents Miami a whole lot more than that other school in Coral Gables that's going to the CFP. Um, no, I mean FIU really encapsulates Miami, encapsulates Hispanic culture quite well. You'll probably be hearing quite a bit of Espanol, certainly quite a bit of Dale, considering that is Pitbull's
Awesome.
thing, and I think the FIU
It's
faithful has certainly risen to that as well. And our colors are blue and gold, but we certainly like the pink and blue too
I
of the
was gonna
Miami
say.
Vice theme that we've been doing for a few years now, and yeah, just definitely sort of those things. And you'll probably, if there are a lot of FIU fans that make it out, they're probably going to overdress as far as quite a bit of jackets and hoodies, even if it's like 50 or 40. That's just how it is.
yeah.
Cold is cold here. It's not like other places where you can kind of get by it because it's usual. It ain't usual here. It's like 80 something degrees outside right now. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of crazy here. But yeah, this is a fan base that has just been dying for success this past half decade. So now that it's finally here, we're all in.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to obviously play any sort of team from any sort of other conference, but then to
Yeah,
get somebody that's been gone for such a while. I mean, obviously
yeah,
there's going to be, like you said, a bunch of energy, and that should make for this really good matchup. And um, got to ask you as we start kind of wrapping this one up, like,
yes.
what's your prediction for this game?
I FIU has also done a good job of proving me wrong the few times I haven't picked them in games. Most recently, the game against Jacksonville State. I think FIU is going to come out ready. They're going to come out motivated. And while I'm not saying UTSA isn't, I think that aside from maybe the academies, this running game will probably surprise UTSA with how smash mouth they can be. And like I said, if it's a close game at halftime, I think that'll definitely, regardless of who's winning, they'll definitely favor the Panthers with how well they're able to get out of the second half and just go swinging on both sides of the ball. I do think FIU is going to pull out a win here. It's probably going to be extremely close. Maybe some overtime might be needed here. But I have faith in the FIU Panthers, which is something I haven't really been able to feel these past few years. So I'd like to keep that going for this game in Dallas.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, like, as Andrew said, man, we've had this whole home and away kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, we've put it together at times for some of these bowls the last couple of seasons, but, you never know. You never know how this is going to turn out. So, we certainly look forward to seeing FIU out there.
Yeah.
Certainly look forward to seeing, Willie Simmons take on Jeff Traylor. And, yeah, it's going to be a fun one right after Christmas, and especially December 26th on the
Yeah.
mothership. It's going to be great. So hey, Jake, appreciate you stopping by with us and bringing up and talking FIU with us. Anytime you want to stop by, let us know, and yeah, we'll talk some college football.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm just looking for a great game here. Obviously, there's a lot of, I don't know, Conference USA can be kind of a spiteful conference at times, but I always did quite like UTSA when they were still members of the conference. Maybe a part of that's just because I quite like the city of San Antonio
Yeah.
quite a bit. But no, I'm definitely hoping that it'll be a fun game and well, not too cold, please. But all right, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
All right, dale.